Good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started now. Sorry, I'm having a few little technical problems in the background, so you might have seen a few messages popping up. But welcome and thank you so much for joining this session on wellbeing and citizenship in a post-pandemic world. I'll start by just introducing myself. This is the first time I've used Zoom actually for presenting, so I might have a few glitches as we go through, but do bear with me. So yeah, I'm Marie and I lead on citizenship, social mobility and wellbeing at BDO. I've been with the firm for over a year now. And before joining BDO, I have 8 years experience in the not-for-profit sector, so working in small and larger charities, and also 8 years experience working for large companies in recruitment and asset management sectors, leading on corporate social responsibility. But yeah, I did want to say at the start of this presentation, let's try and make it interactive. It's Monday morning, so just to help wake ourselves up and get to know each other, do feel free to use the chat box, and certainly do put any thoughts, ideas and questions as we go through, and I'll also pick up the questions at the end as well. So starting out, what do we mean by citizenship or corporate social responsibility? Or also another term that we use is ESG. We like lots of acronyms. So ESG stands for environmental social governance. So what do these terms mean? So really, I like to simplify it in my mind and talk about an organization as being a corporate citizen. So what is the role that that company wants to play in society, and where can they add additional value, and how can they reduce the negative impacts of their operations? So there are four main buckets, if you like, that we tend to talk about when we think about citizenship or CSR, which are community, environment, workplace, and marketplace. And I'll talk through each of these quite quickly, but also to mention that where you have large organizations, often they would have different colleagues or teams working on these different areas. So for example, at BDO, I look after more of the social and the people side. So I have some of the elements within workplace and community, whereas I also work with colleagues in our facilities team who lead on the environmental agenda. So yeah, just to talk through these quite quickly. So community might be things like employee volunteering, fundraising, any kind of corporate giving. So some companies would have a corporate foundation, for example. Moving on to environment. So that would be around environmental sustainability, could be carbon reporting, carbon offsetting, recycling, looking at eco products that the company might want to bring in. On the workplace strand, it's looking at how do we want to look after our people beyond legal compliance of things that we have to do by law. So it could be things like diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, leadership development, and this is also where the wellbeing strand fits into this workplace area of CSR. And lastly, we have marketplace. So it's really important that companies don't just have these fluffy community projects on the side, but they actually really try and integrate citizenship into the heart of the business. So in what the core functions of what they're doing as a company. So in how they have dealings with their clients. So ethical decision making, how they market their products responsibly. But also looking at their supply chain and how they manage that. So on the wellbeing side, really it's about companies looking at creating a positive working environment where people can come to work, that they can be their full selves, and they can be happy and thrive at work. And again, interestingly, there are 4 areas of wellbeing. So we have physical, mental, financial, and social. And I think these are quite self-explanatory, so I won't go through these at this point, but I will touch on them a bit later as well. So challenges ahead. And obviously this talk is in the context of C19. Unfortunately, C19 is not the only challenge that the world is currently facing. So just to set a bit of a scene, we have COVID, which we've seen, devastating impacts across the world in terms of health. And I would also add to that mental health has been massively impacted. But we also see the economic impacts of COVID, and unfortunately, we also have massive challenges around climate change and biodiversity collapse. So the ecological crisis is looming as well. So some of the global topics of our time, I think there's many more, sadly, many more issues that I could have put on this slide. Lots of big challenges for us ahead. And I thought I'd just touch on some of these. So firstly, I've mentioned mental health, and we have seen with the pandemic that there has been an increase of poor mental health, people feeling isolated during lockdown. We have seen increase of anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. So there's a real mental health challenge. As a result of coronavirus, we have seen that we've had a real kind of exposure of the inequalities of the world. So that divide between rich and poor has become really, really apparent during this COVID crisis. Through the Black Lives Matter movement, it's really been highlighted that the extent of racism that still exists across our world. And we've also seen significant job losses through the pandemic, and certain sectors have been obviously more impacted than others, such as aviation, hospitality, live entertainment, tourism, just to name some of the sectors that have had a really tough, challenging time. And alongside the job losses, we know that young people have also been heavily impacted with fewer opportunities in some situations. I mentioned the health crisis of coronavirus, and we have seen obviously those really awful impacts across the world. And we've also seen things like long COVID, where people have recovered from the virus but continue to have a number of health issues and feeling fatigue, etc. And lastly, we've also seen through the pandemic the issue of kind of fake news and how social media can also manipulate us, and seen the impact of that, as well as cybercrime as well increasing, unfortunately, this time. And also we've seen organisations starting to declare the climate emergency. So moving on to the UK, what's the picture here in terms of COVID and our response to the virus? So it has been really encouraging to see that there has been a real increase in donations, and people have really responded to causes related to C19. So we've seen a lot of significant donations to hospitals, to hospices, and the NHS, which we might imagine. But unfortunately, we have seen a decline in some causes receiving funds that they would have otherwise been able to access. So typically a lot of the live events like the London Marathon or other races and things which would have gone on during the year, with them not taking place, some of the charities have missed out on funds. So interestingly, medical research has lost a lot of funding this year. But also we've seen there's been a big impact with the smaller charities, that they have been much more vulnerable to the pandemic and struggling financially. But yeah, if you're interested to read more about giving trends, I do recommend that you have a look at the CAF website, which stands for Charities Aid Foundation, and they've published this report in October, so pretty recent. So in the context of all these world issues that we are facing, we do have a bit of good news that we do have a framework which has been provided by the United Nations, which sets out for countries, governments and companies how they can tackle some of these big issues. So we have the Sustainable Development Goals, which you see here, which are a set of 17 goals with a lot more detail behind them as well. But this does create that roadmap that companies can use to think about how they can focus on different world issues, for example, from things like poverty, well-being, to economic growth and decent work for all, reducing inequalities, and climate action. So lots of goals that each of us can think about how we want to address. But of course, there are so many world issues and, 17 big goals. We can't all do all of those things. So what makes sense for companies to think about when it comes to corporate social responsibility or citizenship? So when I work with companies and help them set up their CSR programs, I often use this diagram. I find it a really useful way to start out. So it's really looking at how can the company work within the sweet spot. So looking at outside, beyond the company, what are the big social and environmental issues that are out there at the moment that the company is well placed to respond to. So looking at the business knowledge and skills that they have and how they can address some of those big topics. But also it's looking at what the business needs are. So understanding what the company is trying to achieve and what their challenges are so that projects can be specifically designed that they meet all three of these things. And then you'll know that it's going to be financially viable for the company to keep prioritizing those kind of projects longer term. So it's really important that you think about all three elements. And I think it's important to say that, corporate social responsibility or citizenship is not a destination, it is a journey. And each company has its own unique way of tackling projects and setting out. And it does take a phased approach. And I think there's lots of different things that you could have on this diagram in terms of the different stages and how companies evolve. But I like the simplicity of this diagram. Of showing the different stages. So, for example, setting up a company, make sure that it's really well run, moving into making financial contributions and donations, then to getting staff involved through volunteering, so actually having that engagement, and then moving into strategic partnerships. So, for example, working with charities to identify, what the problems are and coming up with solutions together. But I think it has been sad during COVID to see some of the companies moving backwards down this ladder. So particularly some of the SMEs that I work with, so small companies, have some have moved back into the first stage of really just trying to go into survival mode and get through these challenging times and just trying to protect jobs. So they have had to reduce some of their community activities. So why are citizenship and wellbeing initiatives important? I think companies quite often look at the 3 R's on the left-hand side there. So in terms of their reputation, the risk if they're not having initiatives in place, and the level of responsibility that they need to take in terms of their license to operate. So those are really important aspects for companies to think through. And also, I think it's key to think about the people that we're trying to support through projects. So from a company perspective, we would want to design projects that engage our employees, that help attract people to join BDO, that help people develop their careers and want to stay with the firm. With clients, we want to have positive things that we can talk about with clients and create those relationships and create opportunities to collaborate with other firms to make a bigger impact. And lastly, and most importantly, it is about societal change. So we want to create positive social change, and we want to do the right thing. But also I should add that some companies who are publicly listed would also have shareholders on that list as well. So what are the benefits for you? So as an individual, why should you think about getting involved in citizenship or wellbeing? I guess that's when you join a firm, but also before that, because I think it's, as I mentioned, CSR can provide, fantastic opportunities for career development. So it kind of develops yourself, both professionally and personally, so particularly around leadership skills. And also it's a very tangible thing that you can put on your CV to talk about at interview to show how you're aligning with a firm's values. And it gives you really concrete things to discuss in terms of skills and values. You also have the opportunity to build up your network. So you can, when you're working on community projects within a company, you would meet people outside your business area, but also you'd be working with external organizations. So you're really kind of building up your sphere of influence and creating more impact. And lastly, I think through whether it's CSR projects or wellbeing initiatives, you're finding out about social issues, you're finding out about mental health issues that are happening in society and with your colleagues. And so it really kind of, you're creating that awareness and developing knowledge. And you also, when you're helping others, you tap into that personal purpose and that sense of meaning and fulfillment. So what are we doing at BDO? So I wanted to talk you through some of our wellbeing and citizenship activities at the firm. So firstly, to say that we really want to make sure that our initiatives align very much with our core purpose, which is helping you succeed. So everything very much links back to that, our vision, our values, and our strategy. Wellbeing and citizenship are both really important strategic priorities, which are held by our U-Board. U-Board stands for Unifying Culture Board, and our U-Board meets very regularly to discuss these topics and takes them very, very seriously. We also have a network of wellbeing and citizenship champions across the firm, and these are very passionate people who really drive local activities across their departments, and we also link up on a quarterly basis to share good practice. And we have dedicated areas on our intranet and lots of resources for our work. So starting off with wellbeing, we focus our programme on the 5 ways of wellbeing, which are take notice, connect, keep learning, give, and be active. So yeah, if you want to open up your chat box, I'd love to know which of these you think is the most important for your own wellbeing. Do feel free to open up the chat box and type in what's important for you. Just while I talk through these. So firstly, take notice. I think often our minds can either take us back into the past or project us forward to the future and worrying about what if this happens or what if that happens. So actually just taking notice of the present moment helps us to just get into the now and not get carried away with our thinking, which helps ground us. So taking notice. And one of the exercises that I've been doing with colleagues recently is to tap into our 5 senses. So what can we see, hear, feel, taste, touch, etc. So going through those 5 senses is a really great way to just come out of our thinking and be very, very present in the moment. So do try that one out. Moving on to connect, and that could be something as simple as just creating a time to speak with a friend, or I've been doing some walk and talks, so meeting a friend in the park for a walk, so having that time to connect. Keep learning, I'm sure that's something that you're all very much involved with at the moment, but also it could be things like hobbies and things which support our well-being. So for example, at BDO on Friday, we had a crafternoon session where we got together and made some origami stars, and it was just something a bit different, something creative, and just again, just got us into the moment and not thinking too much about other things. I love personally the give strand, which I'm a bit of a serial volunteer, but I do think when we make a difference, we help others, we tap into that feel-good factor, and it does give our lives a sense of purpose. And lastly, be active. So that might be just thinking about how we want to incorporate a bit of movement into our day. So it could be as simple as going out for a walk, getting out for some fresh air, and getting out into the daylight hours. So here are some example benefits that we have at BDO. So just to talk through these, and we have many more as well, but I just wanted to give a few examples. So firstly, we have our employee assistance program, so a colleague can ring up day or night and get access to a trained counsellor to talk about anything that's troubling them at the moment. They can also call up and get information on anything that they want to have help with. We have a gym discount scheme gym discounts scheme, so colleagues can access gym memberships at a discounted price, and we also have online fitness subscriptions that they can get access to. We have a bike to work scheme, which is the most tax efficient way to get a bike and accessories. We have a financial wellbeing hub where colleagues can log on to our portal and look at financial wellbeing information. So, for example, things like understanding your credit score, looking at how you can manage money and savings, and look at different life events and how you want to manage your finances. And lastly, we've just brought in a new wellbeing app, which is called DigiCare. And you can see here in the blue circle what colleagues can get access to. So through the app, people can set up GP appointments to speak online with a GP. They can have mental health consultations, nutritional consultations, so that'd be one-to-one advice around nutrition, and also an annual health check where a pack is sent in the post and they can do a quick blood test to send back to the lab and look at health markers. So on wellbeing support, we have a lot of things in place at BDO. So you can see here the range of things which we offer. So starting out, we have some really great training and awareness raising materials. So we work in partnership with the charity Mind, and we have mental health awareness training and also a specific component for managers. We have access to the Samaritans e-learning, which really helps understand what are the signs and symptoms of colleagues who might be struggling and how do you embark on having an open conversation to support them. We have a network of mental health first aiders across the firm who provide confidential support for anyone who's struggling at this time. And it's a bit like a physical first aider. So they would help just identify what's going on at the moment and what potential steps somebody might want to take to support their well-being at this time. We have dedicated pages on our intranet around health and well-being. We've had some new areas set up for C19 in particular and for working at home. We have a wellbeing assistance area, so we signpost a lot of external organisations that can be helpful, colleagues might want to look at. And I'm really proud this year we've created a bank of employee stories. So colleagues have shared some of the mental health challenges that they've gone through, which has been really, really good to see them talking so openly and sharing some of the challenges and showing that there is real hope for recovery. Despite what they've gone through, they have found a way to get through that. And I think that's been really helpful for other colleagues to see. We've set up a Yammer group so employees can share initiatives that are going on around the firm for wellbeing, but also tips as to what's helped them. And most recently, we've also created a wellbeing at home toolkit. So this is a guide for people working at home, just to be able to find all the main resources in one place. We run events through the year. So we have quite a few campaigns that we run around, for example, things like Mental Health Awareness Week. And we celebrated World Mental Health Day in October. And we bring in external and internal speakers through the year for these campaigns and other times through the year. And we talk about a range of different topics. Most recently, from World Mental Health Day this year in October, we've now setting up at least 2 wellbeing events every single month. So lots of events that help colleagues in different ways. We also run physical activities. So this year we took part in the 2.6 challenge. As I mentioned before, that the London Marathon couldn't go ahead this year. So we were really keen to play our part, get active and support charities. We also set up our own challenges, which we called the Chain Challenge, which was creating a chain and connecting our offices around the UK, primarily through cycling, but we also had colleagues doing other physical activities. And we've also done a really successful step challenge, which had a bit of healthy competition with people counting steps. Most recently, we've also launched a winter wellbeing package. So we've aligned this to our 5 ways of wellbeing that I talked through earlier. And last month we started with Learn, so really encourage colleagues to think about what works for them, because we know that wellbeing is deeply personal. So really take that time to reflect, think about what works for them, and also to look at the resources that we have available. This month we're having a focus on give. So the firm is going to be giving us some time and a bit of a bonus to thank employees for their work this year. But we are also encouraging people to think about how they can use their citizenship days to make a positive impact for charities. We have a big Christmas quiz coming up, which will bring all of our colleagues together across the firm. And in January, we're going to be getting people active again to kickstart the new year, to start getting us moving. And then in February, we're going to be launching a coffee connection scheme. So that'll be randomly connecting people up to speak with each other and have conversations. So I've mentioned the charity Mind, and we're really pleased to have a long-standing partnership with the charity. So we help Mind to set up the Workplace Wellbeing Index, which is a benchmarking scheme. And we have taken part over the years, so you can see from 2017 moving forwards how we've moved up from an action to bronze level and to silver in the last few years, which really shows how seriously we take this agenda. But we continue to work hard on wellbeing and also citizenship. We know that they're not static, and we need to keep doing more. And you can certainly read a lot about what we've done over the last year in our culture report, which has sections for both wellbeing and citizenship. So do have a look at our culture report to see what we've been up to. But I do want to say, if you are finding things tough at the moment or any point in the future, that you're not alone. And, particularly at the moment, it is a global pandemic. And we know, as I mentioned, that stress and anxiety and depression have been on the increase. So it is quite normal as a human being to go through these things. So yeah, just to say that it is quite normal and you're not alone. And I wanted to share a couple of resources that might be useful to you, or you might want to share these with others that you know at any point. So firstly, the Samaritans, which I've mentioned before. They are an external charity that are available to support people on a non-judgmental listening basis. And they provide a free telephone number. You can contact them through their website or instant messaging. So they're a really good resource to know that if you are struggling, you can call up and get support at any point. I really like the Your Mind Plan, which is a new tool that you can find on the NHS website. And they've created this in line with, it's relevant for COVID-19. And you can just answer 5 quick questions, and then you will be sent some tailored resources that can help your mental well-being at this time. So I've done that. It's very quick, and I got some really good resources through, so I really recommend that one. In the middle, you can see this square diagram, which you might be familiar with, which is called box breathing. So it's a technique to help calm our nervous system and to help us feel more in control of the situation that we might find ourselves in. And what it involves is breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, and then holding a breath again for 4 seconds. And so doing this for several minutes really helps calm us down. So do try that if you haven't tried that already. And lastly, you might have seen the Apple technique talked about quite a bit during the pandemic. And I find it's just quite a simple way to remember that what we can do is using the letters of Apple, we can just acknowledge what's going on, take a pause. So just taking a breath, pulling back. So often a lot of our issues can come from our thinking. We can get carried away in repetitive thoughts, negative thoughts. So it's just pulling back from those thoughts and letting go. So we might want to imagine some of our thoughts just floating away in a balloon, just letting go of them, not holding on to those thoughts, and also exploring the current moment. So typically with anxiety, things like that, we are thinking about all the what ifs, what if this happens, what if that, and things can escalate in our mind. So just reminding ourselves, normally in the present moment, everything is okay, everything's well. So just exploring that present moment, checking in and realizing that we're okay at the moment. So I wanted to share another tool which has been very popular at BDO, which is called FORMSCORE. And this was developed by a man called Rob Stevenson, who's a mental health campaigner. He experiences bipolar disorder. And he's developed this tool really to support his own mental health. And he now shares this publicly, which is a really brilliant tool. And so we've got the questions on the left-hand side that we can ask ourselves around how motivated we feel, whether decisions are easy or difficult, how well we've slept, exercise that we've done, how connected we feel with friends and family, and things like finances. So asking these kind of questions, and then on the right hand side we can come up with a number of where we feel on a scale of 1 to 10. And this is a good thing to do on a regular basis. So if we can do this, for example, once a day, although it does fluctuate during the day, it's quite handy just to see where are we on a daily basis, what's impacting our form. So sometimes we might be able to correlate and realize actually it's to do with not quite sleeping as well as I'd like to, and that's impacting and reducing my form. So we can plot back, but what we can also do is once we know where we are on the scale, we can then think, how can I bump up? How can I nudge up 1 point? So for example, if we're feeling on a low form, or maybe we've got to a 6, how can we move up to a 7? So what can we do? So it might be ringing a friend and having a bit of time out to chat with a friend, which then could just nudge us up the scale. So I've mentioned that wellbeing is a deeply personal thing. It's something that we have to work out what works for us. And also there are some scientifically verified activities which I've provided on this list. This is in the backdrop of understanding that our modern day world has most of us living in perpetual stress. So we live in a highly stressful state, generally speaking. So how can we help calm our nervous system? How can we help our brain and our bodies? So from a neuroscience perspective, these are activities which have been shown to work. And so, yeah, do have a look at this list. Think about anything that you want to incorporate from this list. So, for example, I have a cat at home. So she's my sort of well-being guru. So just taking a little bit of time out of my busy day just to play with her or stroke her really helps bring down my stress levels. But it's good to also think about small chunks of time that we can fit into our day, and think about having variety. So just having a selection of different things each day that we can do to support ourselves. So moving on to citizenship at BDO. So hopefully once we've fitted our own oxygen masks and we are feeling good in terms of our well-being, that we're also now able to do good. So we have a very generous scheme at BDO. We allow 10 days a year to get involved in community projects. So firstly, we have My Action 5, which is 5 days that employees can use for personal volunteering, personal fundraising, team events, and also wellbeing activities. And then we have My Strategic 5, which in essence is skills-based volunteering. So using our skills to make a bigger impact with the charities and communities we want to support. We have a payroll giving scheme set up so employees can give. It's the most tax efficient way to give to charity, and we can either sign up to support a specific charity, or what I do is I've set up a charity bank account, so I can pull my monthly donations into my account, and then I can disperse those funds as I want to during the year. We have a match funding scheme, so where employees have done some fundraising for a charity that they really care about, they can then apply for match funding, so up to £500 per year, which is a great benefit. I'm working closely with a charity where I'm a trustee, and it's really nice to be able to do some fundraising and get that extra money across from the firm. We have a number of support things in place to support citizenship. So, for example, we have some guides and FAQs to help colleagues think about how they want to use their days and what support is available. We recognise campaigns and special days during the year. So, for example, National Volunteers Week, and we celebrate those successes and share case studies. And we also have, in a similar way to our Wellbeing Yammer group, we have a citizenship Yammer group, which is a great way for colleagues to share what projects they're doing in the community, and they can ask for other people to get involved and really share, what's going on and tips and ideas. On the social mobility side, we have a very much collaborative approach with other accountancy firms. So, for example, we are a founding member and signatory of Access Accountancy. So we work with the 25 member firms of Access Accountancy, and we have regular meetings to think about how we can showcase accountancy as a profession, how we can encourage young people to think about it as a career. And we have a particular focus with Access Accountancy around work experience and work shadowing, where we can kind of open up opportunities for people. We've also recently been taking part in a pilot project with the big 6 accountancy firms, and this has been a bit different to Access Accountancy, where we've focused on the social mobility cold spots across the UK, so where there's high levels of disadvantage, and we've been focusing on skills that young people might need for their futures. So, for example, general employability, digital skills, resilience, which very much links to the wellbeing agenda. So helping students to think about what are the kind of skills that they need for their success and for whatever career that they want to go into, so not necessarily accountancy. So yeah, I wanted to share some quick ideas if you are looking to partner with a charity or set up a new project. These are some of the stages that you might want to think through to make sure that your project is as successful as possible. So I've got the 5 stages here. So really encourage people to think at the beginning what they're trying to achieve, what the priorities are, if they want it to be a kind of one-off or if it's going to be a longer term project, what level they're working at. So is it local, national, or international? So thinking through some of these first aspects. Then finding the project, so whether you might want to utilize employee networks or your friendship networks, going out to find out what charities are out there, looking at objectives, finding out about things like, sometimes people forget to ask questions with charities, like are there costs involved? Do you need to do some training? So for example, if you're becoming a mentor, quite often you'll need to do some training. And whether sort of DBS checks are required before starting. So that can also add extra lead-in time to get all those things in place before starting. And I think a really key point here is building trusted relationships. I know that quite often it can be quite difficult to find new projects to work on. And I think from a charity perspective, they want to know that where they're investing time, that they know that the person's going to be committed to doing those activities. So that links in actually to a phrase that I've put there under agree, which is I always try to, with charities, under promise and over deliver. So the worst thing people can do is go in and say, oh yeah, I'll do this, this and this, and I'll do that, and promising the world and then not actually meeting that. So it's much better to be more modest in starting out, make a small promise and then keep that promise, and then you can build that trusted relationship with the charity, and they can believe that you're going to do what you've said that you're going to do. Really important to go through the logistics and kind of map out all of the specifics so that everyone's on the same page as to what's going to happen, and contingency plans as well. And then, recruiting the right people. So yeah, whether that's colleagues within a firm, or it could be your friends and other connections, getting them involved. And I think then the communications piece is really important, to feedback afterwards as to the success and what's happened, and thanking people. And then, yeah, building on that. So you're having the chance to debrief with the charity, find out what's gone well and what you can build on for next time. So some citizenship ideas. As I mentioned, I know over the years, many colleagues and friends have contacted me saying, you know, I want to volunteer, but it's so difficult to find something that I can do. So I know it's not as straightforward as we'd like it to be. So yeah, on the left-hand side, I've listed a couple of organisations. You might want to have a look at their websites. They have volunteering opportunities that are adapted for COVID-19, so really relevant for the time. Lots of virtual volunteering, so things that you can do from home on your computer. So Thrive CSR's got quite some innovative projects at the moment, and also the Do It website has a database where you can search with your postcode or search for remote opportunities and come up with a list of charities and things that you might want to consider getting involved with. Also, I think it's worth thinking about trusteeship. I know it's often something that we think about as a later stage in life, but actually a lot of charities do really want young trustees, particularly youth charities. It's really important that they have young people represented on their boards. So do think about whether you might want to become a trustee. It is quite a significant commitment that you typically would have at least 4 meetings a year, and obviously the charity would want you to be doing things between those meetings as well. But it's a great way to develop board level skills. If you're an ambitious person, it's a great way to help accelerate your career. We also have fundraising. So I think where it can be difficult to do volunteering, sometimes finding opportunities, as I said, is not as easy as we'd like it to be. But I think fundraising is a little bit more straightforward and something that can be really impactful, particularly at this time, particularly for small charities that can be struggling. And what's exciting about working with small charities is, although we might not raise huge sums of money, that the money that we do raise will make a big impact with smaller charities. So they'll be more appreciative and will make a bigger difference in that sense. So yeah, do consider fundraising. I think it's can be really impressive when you've gone out, raised money for charities, and it's a great way to help build those trusted relationships with charities. So what do we see coming up on wellbeing and citizenship as we come out of the COVID crisis? I think during the pandemic, we have had a bit more of a realization around the local focus. So because we've all been at home, we've been quite aware of the hyperlocal, of what's going on around us, and also linking in with the origin of where products and services are coming from. So being a bit more savvy as consumers, making more ethical decisions. So hopefully I think the crisis has helped many of us put things into perspective and think more about things that we might have taken for granted before. Things like spending time with friends and family, and hopefully we've become a little bit less materialistic in some of the things that we might have previously gone after. So it's just created that awareness of the world that we want to create, and a bit more consumer ethics around the choices that people are being more demanding of companies. And I think people also looking at how companies are treating their staff, so really wanting to see that they're taking wellbeing seriously at this time. So that's really important. And I think we are starting to see some of the previous measures of success, so perhaps things like GDP, where we've looked at countries' success based just on financials, perhaps isn't sufficient any longer. We need to look at new metrics for what we deem as being success on planet Earth. We're also looking at skilling for the future. So while I mentioned various industries that aren't doing so well at the moment, we can see a real growth in, for example, the tech sector. And also I'm seeing that there's going to be a huge potential with green jobs. So as we prepare to tackle climate change, there's a lot of new technologies that need to come in. So hopefully there's a lot of green innovation that's coming up. We've talked about Virtual volunteering, so there's a real trend now of people volunteering from their computers and laptops from home, and also a trend around cashless giving. So as I mentioned, with a lot of the in-person events not going ahead, people are now donating much more online. We really need a lot more social innovation, so to tackle those big issues that we talked about at the start. And I think a lot more collaboration across companies and organizations working together to solve some of these big issues. And I think there's a real role here as well for social enterprise. So you might have heard of social enterprise. It's basically they operate like a company, but they have a social or environmental mission. So they're kind of like hybrid organizations that straddle both the company perspective, but also the impact space. And I think there's a real role for social enterprise now in helping us tackle the sustainable development goals and the big topics of our time. And they also create a great opportunity for companies to think about how they can use their procurement and switch to, for example, social enterprises and buy in products and services from them. And in that instance, then harness their procurement spend for good. And I think generally we're seeing a lot more accountability with social media, etc., and new legislation that's coming in that companies are going to have to get more serious on these agendas and to meet that scrutiny that's coming from around the world, which is a really positive development. And I think generally as well that we're going to look back on this crisis and look to see what companies achieved during the crisis, how they stayed true to their purpose, and what activities that they've focused on during the pandemic. So what can we do to change the future? Hopefully, while COVID has created these devastating impacts, it has also created this opportunity for our planet to pause, to think about the way that we've been living our lives in the past, and perhaps realizing that it's not been as sustainable as we need it to be in order to have a positive future. So really taking that time now to build back better and create a better world for the future. And really, it does take each of us to do this. So don't underestimate the power that you have and how you can change the world, both by getting involved in charities and various initiatives that are happening, but also as you join firms and companies, do speak up, do say what's important to you, because that companies, whether it's BDO or other firms that you might join, will really listen and really value what you care about and will take notice of that. But also you can help talk about what you think firms should be doing and play a role in that and shaping that future. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Do you have any questions? And I'm going to check our chat box now. So I'll just see if I can get the technology to work. I'm just going to have a quick look at the questions now. So just wait 1 second.
I think we've got some questions in the chat, Marie, and I think we've got 2 in the Q&A as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just having a look at the chat ones.
Perfect.
So yeah, I can see that there's a question here about how BDO supports employees who wish to put forward initiatives on CSR, especially if they're not more senior. So yeah, I think we really have a very flexible approach with our 5+5 scheme that I talked through. So we really encourage employees to think about what they care about. So really have like a lot of flexibility for people to design projects and get involved with things that they want to focus on and what they're passionate about. So we try not to exclude things. We do kind of educate that it's really good to use our skills, but we do have enormous flexibility of how people want to use their time. So we really encourage that. And we also have, as I mentioned, our citizenship champions. So they are colleagues across our different business areas who can support other employees who have ideas. So they can help make introductions to charities and help develop project ideas. So yeah, there's a lot of support. It doesn't matter how senior you are. You can be just starting your career and have some brilliant ideas, and we will very much work with you and help you to set those up. So someone else has asked a question about how to talk about BDO's CSR in an interview. So I think in any interview, see, it's very much around that preparation. So looking on the website, finding out what's been going on within the company. So I think our culture report, as I mentioned before, is a really good place to do that research, just look at some of the stories of projects that have been happening. So I think, in an interview, you might want to show that you've read the culture report by talking about some of the examples, perhaps linking in with some of the CSR activities that you've done, but also don't hold back with your ideas. So, we'd love to hear what you think about our CSR activities, like where could we improve? What should the firm be thinking about moving forward? So, feel free to also mention some ideas, which I'm sure would be really useful for us to incorporate. Thank you to people who've listed which of the 5 ways of well-being that they like. So we've seen connection there, being active, which is great. There's a question, Eagle. I'm not sure if you want to pick that one up about the post-study visa. Do you know about that one, Eagle?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Marie. Just briefly, to those of you who don't know me, my name is Eagle. I work in the recruitment team, so I help recruit our trainees in some of our offices. So if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to come to me. You can also add me on LinkedIn. I know we've done that loads of time. So if you have any questions around that, feel free to reach out to me there. We do sponsor Tier 4 visa students at the moment in all of our offices, and we do have a team who are looking into how the new regulations will have an impact on us. But we know that recruiting international students is a great way for us to make sure that we are recruiting the best talent out there. So we're still figuring out how it will be done, but it's something that we will be doing, absolutely.
Thanks, Eagle. There's a couple more questions I can pick up, and then sorry, I haven't left you much time, Eagle, as well. Do you want to say some words as well? Shall I quickly pick up these last questions, or would you like to? Yeah,
go for it.
Okay, so yeah, just quickly on most successful project that I've been involved with. I think this year I've been really proud how we have responded to the pandemic at BDO and really prioritised well-being. It has really risen up our agenda and kind of been in the top 4 business critical issues. So we've really been doing a lot of activity around well-being, and as I mentioned, the employee videos that we've created with people telling their stories, speaking very openly, and also we've been now running at least 2 events every month on wellbeing. So really proud of how we've responded and the support that we've put in place for colleagues. So I think that answers the second question about how we've been dealing with well-being and wellness. So yeah, we've taken it exceptionally seriously, and literally every email, every week we have an email that goes out to all staff, which has a big section on well-being. So there's a lot that's going on across the firm. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marie. I'll just share my screen briefly because I've got some slides as well that I'll run through with you. So Marie's talked about us in the UK and what we do from a CSR perspective, but I'd like to take a step back and just let you know that we are a global firm. So BDO UK is part of BDO Global, and we have partner offices in 167 countries. So by revenue, we're the 5th largest accountancy in the world. In terms of reach, we're the biggest. So we have offices in more countries than any other accountancy firm. In the UK, we have 17 locations, and we do recruit trainees in all of those. So two in Scotland, so Edinburgh and Glasgow, and then from Southampton in the south to Leeds in the north. These are some of the clients that we work with. We are the leading auditor of SMEs in the UK, so small, medium-sized enterprises. However, we do work with some of the biggest firms out there, as well as some private individuals, as well as a lot of charities, as you can see on here. We do work with them as well in our not-for-profit audits teams, especially. So not only is CSR important for our employees and the way that we encourage them to get involved in their local community, it's also part of what we do with our clients. BDO UK is split into 4 streams, and we recruit into all of those. It's advisory, audit, tax, business services, and outsourcing. The biggest one is audit, followed by tax. And when you apply for a specific location and a specific team and stream. So you then join there. If you're a graduate, you join for 3 years. You work with us 80% of the time and study 20% towards professional qualification. More often than not, that's an ACA qualification, so you become a chartered accountant. But some of the teams also do the CTA, for example, which is Chartered Tax Advisor, ACCA, etc. Just have a look at that when you apply. And we always say apply as soon as possible, because we do operate on a first come, first serve basis. The programs that we have are here. So we have 4 of them. Obviously, the graduate program that I mentioned. We also have a summer internship for students in their penultimate year at university. That's not live yet. It will be going live in January. And I would highly recommend that you keep an eye out for those as they go quite quickly. It's a virtual 1-week program. You join us over the summer. You get to know the team that you've applied to. You get to develop some of the skills that you would need in a career with us. And then if you do well during that week, you can go back to your final year at university with a graduate offer already secured. The academic requirements for both of those are a 2-2 or better at university, or obviously if you're on course for a 2-2 or better, then we accept that. 3 A-levels or equivalent from A star to C, and 4 or better in maths and English GCSE. We also recruit school leavers. I'm not sure if that would apply to any of you, but the school leaver program is a 4-year program instead of the 3-year graduate program. And we also offer a summer school, which is essentially a summer internship for Year 12 students. When you join, as I said, you'll be working with us, but you'll also be studying. I thought, since we've been talking about well-being, I thought I'd point out some of the teams that you do have there to support you. So you obviously have your people manager, who will be a manager in the team you are working in, as well as the wider firm who are there to help you, buddies, mentors, etc. But we also have some professional teams that are in place to help you develop your skills. So professional qualifications are there for your ACA or CTA, depending on which team you join, of course, as well as the PD team. So people development, they do a lot of the soft skills that you might not necessarily get with your professional qualification. and they are there to help you develop those skills as you keep going through your career with us. In addition to that, we do work with some of the biggest training providers in the country, who are the colleges that we send our trainees to, so BPP and Kaplan being two, and they are there to help you out as well, and have tutors who are there to help you do well on your exams. The application process for our roles is very simple. It's a 3-step process: online application, online test, and assessment centre. The assessment centre is obviously virtual. It takes 4.5 hours, and after that, you will know whether you have an offer or not. The online application is very simple. It's just your contact details and your academic results. No cover letter needed. And I would actually recommend not writing a cover letter, because spending that time it doesn't really give you an advantage. And if you can instead get your application in a day or two earlier, then that's better. The online test is for us to get to know who you are as much as what your strengths are. So it's all about showing your personality, how you would work, and then we would take that into account to figure out whether the opportunities that we offer you are the ones that would, well, if they would be a good fit for you. So you get the link for that once you've applied, and I would recommend practicing. There is a practice link there, but it's more about you as an individual rather than your numerical skills. So there are some behavioural questions in there and some scenarios, etc. as well. The assessment centre will have different components, so group exercise, presentation, etc. But there's also the interview. I saw the question that Marie got about, is it a good idea to talk about CSR in the interview? I agree with Marie, it can definitely be a good thing to talk about. And when you're talking about why you've applied to BDO, that's definitely a thing that can be very valuable to talk about. I would, however, caveat that by saying it can be good when you're talking about why you decided to apply for the firm, but you should also have other reasons for wanting to join. So if you go in to talk to an audit partner, odds are they're doing volunteering as well, and they are very passionate about that, but you need to make sure you talk about the work as well. I'm just saying that because it's our values are very important to us, and it's something that they would like to hear from you in the interview, but you want to make sure that it's balanced with some motivation around the team you've applied to as well. So online tests, I just thought I'd rattle through this. As I said, it's about you as a person. However, there are some things you can do to do as well as possible. Sit in a quiet room where you won't be disturbed. Have everything that you need to hand and practice. The more you do the tests, the more comfortable you will be with them. So running through them a few times will make you more comfortable, less stressed when you do the actual tests. So just run through them, get to know the format, because the format that we use is unique to us. So if you have done tests with other firms, they might not be very similar. There is a video interview component to the test as well. Just dress as you would for a normal interview. Do your research and talk through your motivations for wanting to join BDO with yourself, and believe in yourself. Don't have any notes to hand or anything like that. Keep them far away, because the more you look down and the more you look like you're reading off notes, the less well you'll come across. So just do your research and be really confident that this is the role that you would like, and then you will do well at the video interview. And also obviously keep an eye on the time as well. The video interview is the only part of the online test that is timed, and you want to make sure you do spend enough time on each question, but you also want to make sure you don't waffle. Virtual Assessment Centre has different parts, so 4 different exercises: group exercise, presentation, interview, and written exercise. There aren't any big surprises when you go into it, so do practice for each of those, and just bear in mind that we use Microsoft Teams for our assessments, so get to grips with Teams as well, because having technical issues on the day can quite easily throw you off. So just get comfortable using that before the day. Again, it's all about doing your research on the role as well as on BDO. Know that you're there to work together with the other candidates. You're not there to compete with them. Odds are, when you go in for an assessment centre, there are enough roles for at least most of the people in that assessment centre, so don't feel like you have to compete. The more you make someone else look good in group exercise, the better you will look. So keep that front and centre in your mind, because it can feel quite competitive, and it's quite easy to go in and think that you have to be the one to talk the most, etc. Ensure you cover all the objectives in the presentation. Make sure spelling and grammar is correct. Dress as you would for a face-to-face interview, and most importantly, be yourself. We have a culture at BDO that allows people to bring their full selves to work, and it's important that you also not only show your personality during the assessment centre, but get a good feeling for whether this is the right firm for you, and whether and if you don't bring your full self, you will come across as less authentic, and it's easy for your answers to be a bit more stilted. So if you're able to just relax and be yourself, you will do better. That's it from me. I'll just have a look to see if there are any questions. Any recruitment related questions or anything else that I can help you with, please just let me know. I could talk about the wellness and wellbeing support at BDO that I see as one of the questions here. Obviously for Marie, you know, she's helping drive a lot of these, but as an employee, I found them really useful. We're all working from home at the moment, all 6,000 plus of us, and doing that can be quite challenging because you're very focused on your work and you don't get to interact with other team members, etc. And I feel like the wellbeing support that we have been getting is great. We're doing things like the coffee catch-ups in the HR team. We're doing quizzes, and there are also other resources for people who need it. So personally, as an employee and not as the recruiter, I have been really impressed with the support that we get, and there's a lot of proactive initiatives out there that that the firm have put in place for us. I think that seems to be it from the questions, unless you have any others last minute. I think we can leave it there. As I said, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like to. There's also a talk to us part of our BDO Early Career website where you can speak directly with some of our trainees and other employees who are happy to tell you more about their experiences with us to date. There are a lot of questions already answered, so go on there, have a look. You might find some of the questions you wanted to ask already answered. and thank you very much for attending today. It was great catching up with you, and I hope to see you all apply soon.